Good day, folks. My name is David Simpson, and I am co-founder and co-director of the Remedy Project. I am here today to enlighten you on how things work and operate and the mindset of those who run and control the prison system here in the U.S. and how the folks who are incarcerated in the system, how they operate and their mindsets work also. Why is this important? This is important because if you are to assist them with the administrative remedy process, which is the process by which they need to file to the warden of the institutions to help them with any issue or want or need that they may have, they would need to do this in order to have official complaint or official issue on the record. If they don't, they get no help, or let's not say they get no help, but let's say it's difficult to assist them. And when they don't do that, staff can abuse the situation and they suffer and suffer tremendously, right? So in order for you to assist them with this process, you need to be able to understand what's happening to the folks who are incarcerated, how life is on the inside with them, how it is they interact with the folks who run the system, and these other little intricate things. Because if you don't know and understand this stuff, it's really hard for you to assist them with a remedy. Why? Because you are not incarcerated. They are, right? And prison has a whole nother language, right? So there's a whole nother language, a whole nother concept in prison. People use different slangs and all that type of stuff. And if you are not familiar with that stuff, they reach out to you and tell you, hey, they wrote me, they gave me a shot, right? So a shot, give you a shot. What are you talking about? What do you mean they gave you a shot? Well, you don't know what it's talking about. You might think it's an injection, right? You might think they shot him somehow with something, right? You don't know. But what a shot is incident report and or a ticket. For a simple way for you to understand, it's like a ticket, right? So that person got a ticket, right? So this stuff is important. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to use common language like that. So I'm not going to, or when I mention something from the inside, I'm going to then translate it to the best of my ability into common terms for you to understand what it is that person means on the inside, right? And I'm also going to try my best to make sure you understand the surroundings and what a person goes through when they are incarcerated. And so this first training video that I'm doing right now is for the purpose of introducing you to the system. So now you have these intelligent folks who are incarcerated, right? So again, we got from the poor to the uneducated to the wealthy to the brainiacs of the world incarcerated in federal prisons in the United States of America or in any prison. And yet there is not as much remedies that should be filed for the amount of issues that they have, right? It's horrible in federal prisons. That's where my experience is from. It's horrible. I'm telling you that straight up. People go in there, sentenced to 5 years, right? 5 years housed at a facility, and end up with a sentence of 5 years and no legs, okay? That's how horrible, that's just one of the examples of how horrible the prison system is, right? And so, but these folks are intelligent. A lot of them are intelligent. Why don't they use the remedy process? Well, they don't use the remedy process for a number of reasons. And there's a number of things that affect that, right? Affect their ability to use the process. And so now I'm going to try to walk you through what happens or what's going on with a person when they are when they meet up or encounter the system, and what leads them to a place where they can't function to do these remedies properly. All right? So someone is arrested and charged with a crime, and it could be minor stuff. Well, what do we want to call minor? It's just my thing. Let's say minor is tax fraud, white collar crime, right? Trespassing on federal property or state property, right? You could end up in prison for this type of thing, right? And it could be a year or more. It could be less. But depending on where they put you, you can still face a significant amount of danger from staff or from those who are also incarcerated, right? And so when folks encounter the system, you're arrested and so on and so forth, you get in front of a judge, and depending on what's going on with that person's particular case, their emotions and their ability to function and cope, their mindset, is all over the place, right? So one of the big things is that when you get arrested by the Fed, especially when you get arrested by the feds, people start thinking the worst, right? Start thinking the worst, right? So it's like, oh, these guys got me. I'm probably going to go away for a long bit of time. I'm probably going to end up in one of those prisons where people get killed and stabbed or raped, right? Let's call that, let's say sexual abuse, right? So you're probably going to end up in a place where you'll be sexual abused. All this type of stuff folks start worrying about. Not only that, they also have to worry about what it is that they're going to lose or they're potentially going to lose on the outside. So if you have a lot of money, when you're going into the system, you no longer have access to that money, and you might leave it in control of others. You're worried about what they're going to do with it, whether they're going to spend up all your money, or your business, whether your business is going to be taken care of properly. Would it be able to function without you? If you set it up to do so, whether the person is going to do it right, and all these things, right? And a lot of times, folks who get arrested, especially if you are of the minority, right? If you are of the minorities, when we're talking about the black and brown skin sector, sometimes Spanish also, when you get arrested, a lot of times you enter the system and you don't come back out, right? Or you don't get a chance to continue on the street until you are found guilty, and then you'll be taken in. So when you get snatched up off the street for whatever that crime is, and you don't have access, you don't get an ability, the opportunity to come back out and deal with your life issues, to put your ducks in a row, you start going crazy, right? Your emotions, your mental is all over the place, because whatever you had on the outside, whether it's business, kids, money, family, whatever, that's all over the place, right? And so your mentality is just all over the place. So you're not functioning. You're not functioning. And you haven't even gotten to the prison yet, right? You're just arrested, okay? You're arrested and taken to the courts. This is why you're in the courts, right? Even if you're walking the streets, even if you're lucky to not be put directly into the prison system, while walking the streets and you might be able to put some of your ducks in a row, but I tell you so many times that folks are under that stress and worry about how much prison time they're going to get, and how bad things are, and they're just tearing themselves apart on the inside and mentally, and so they don't get to to prepare all that well, and they don't know what they're facing a lot of times. If you were like me, you would be thinking, well, I didn't actually do anything wrong, I didn't commit any crimes, and there is no evidence to show that I committed any crimes, so I'm not too worried. How are they going to put me away? How are they going to convict me without evidence? Right? And so I'm not preparing jack, okay? Because I'm thinking I'm not going to prison. So, fool on me, right? They lied, manipulated evidence, and I ended up in prison for 11 and a half years, right? That happens to thousands of people who enter the prison system, right? And when that is happening to you, when you're in the court and you're seeing that folks are manipulating evidence, manufacturing evidence, and using that stuff against you to pressure you for whatever reason. Maybe they want you to testify on someone. Maybe they want to know where you got the know-how to do what you did, or to get to someone else. It doesn't matter what it is. The folks in the system use the tactic of pressuring folks or threatening them with life imprisonment or convicting them even if there is no evidence, for the purpose of getting them to provide them with what they need. And if that doesn't happen, like me, you end up in the system, right? It's the way it is. In my case, they called it the war on drugs, okay? So you could end up in the prison system like that. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. You have the folks who are actually guilty, who committed crimes. And a lot of times their mindset is, well, I could challenge this system and I could win, right? I could win against this system, and they want to challenge the system, try to beat the prosecutors, try to get off. Some of them, if they committed murder or something like that, or they stole a lot of money, they want to beat the system so that they could remain on the outside and utilize that money that they got, murder gives you a long time in prison, so they don't want to stay a long time, so they are trying to beat it, right? So that happens. And in the process, in all this process, in all these different ways, sometimes you have to deal with the prosecution and make deals with them. And while you're making deals with the prosecutors, they break and violate a lot of these deals a lot of the time. Or they tell you, oh, we're going to give you this, or you're going to get that, but you actually don't get that. You get something either way worse the majority of the time, and your sentence at the end of the day is way longer the majority of the time, right? And so I'm giving you all of this because I want you to understand that folks who are incarcerated are dealing with a lot and going through with a lot mentally and emotionally from the point they are connected with the justice system, right? They haven't necessarily really even gotten into the prison yet. They're going through a lot. And that there, I would say, drains a person's system, right? It drains them mentally and physically, right? Worried and stressing, right? Their families are saying, hey, well, look what you did. You look at the harm or the hurt you caused us. You embarrassed us, right? So a lot of people, the mere fact that they're now going to be a felon or not going to go to prison, their families are ashamed. They embarrass the family, right? You're now going to have a stigma on us, all of that. These folks are dealing with all of that stuff at the same time mentally. And so you're going into prison and you're just all over the place. You're not functioning right. Some people hold it together and are composed while going through the courts, and some just can't, right? Whichever one of those places you're in, what's coming next changes the whole scene, right? So whether you were on the outside or whether you went into, whether you got to the court and you experienced your first session in court, right? And now you're heading off to the prison. What happens? This is crazy. From the time they decide that you belong in prison, that you should not have access to the community anymore, what happens is they start erasing you or they start letting you know that you as a human being or as a person are no longer going to be who you were or what you were, right? Whatever it is you had going on, forget about it. It's all going away. And the first thing prison staff start doing is taking away your name. Your identity starts going away. You're no longer David Simpson. You're now inmate 644-85053. Right? They start taking your identity away. And they replace your identity with the term inmate, which is like calling a person the N-word or slave, right? Because when they talk to you, it's no longer, hey, Mr. Simpson, how you doing? It's, inmate Simpson, come here, all right? Or, inmate, get over here. What's your number? Right? Not what's your name, what's your number? You don't, what? What are you talking about? What number? You don't know your number? No. Well, I don't, what are you talking, what number? Well, oh, you have a number. What's your name? That's when they ask you your name. Oh, my name is David Simpson. Oh, well, your number is 644-89053. Right? That's when okay, and they, you got to remember that, right? That's what comes out. Please remember that, because that's what we deal with you by. All right? And so they start taking away your name and your identity. Start calling you this slave word, because they can't say slave. So I think that they took inmate, which has really had nothing to do with the prison system, and placed it on there and said, we're going to use this term. This is a good term, to dehumanize or take away someone's identity, and we're going to use that. And so now inmate is synonymous with prisons here in the United States. Right? And so that's what happens. They take away your identity. That's what the first thing you realize. So you're being moved from the courts to the buses, to the system, to go to the prison, and you realize that you lost your identity. One of the other things you're going to realize quickly from a lot of folks who work in the system is that you lose respect. It doesn't matter what crime you commit, right? You lose your respect, because they start talking to you like you are the most horrible person in the world, and it's just the way it is. If you don't want to be treated that way, you shouldn't have done what you've done, right? It's just that simple. That's the mentality, and you lose lose respect from the folks in the system the majority of time. Why? Because you committed a crime, or you were accused of committing a crime. Not everybody that goes into prison committed the crime they're accused of. I think that by now, that should be known and understood widely, right? The Innocence Project has released too many people and still have a caseload that they can't really get to quick enough of folks who are most likely innocent and doing time in prison. Many of them die in there. Okay? So, you lose your respect, you lose your identity. Well, you get put on this bus and you're taken to the prison, and now you're being processed into the prison. Right? What comes next? You get put in a cell, and the next thing someone comes to you, of course, inmate so number, you step forward, they put you in this room, and they tell you, take off all your clothes, strip. Right? You start stripping, you don't even know what's going on. They say, strip, even the underwear. Oh, what? I got to get bare naked? Yes, you got to get bare naked. They take everything off of you, right? And then they ask you to open your mouth. They want to see in your mouth. They ask you to squat, right? And, a lot of time turn around and squat. They literally look up your butt. A lot of people do. And stuff like that. And I will tell you that is one of the most dehumanizing things that one could ever go through, right? It's for strangers who have authority over you to strip you naked and I see that as a violation, right? Because what have you done to deserve that, right? Maybe your crime was a really bad one. So, and there's folks who are going to make a good argument that you should have gone through that. But what about the folks who were innocent and whose crimes did not necessarily hurt anyone? What about the dude who trespassed on federal property, and these kind of things, right? Are you telling me that the lawyers who, let's say an immigration lawyer that falsified documents for a person to come into this country deserves that kind of treatment going into prison? Yeah, it's kind of hard to make an argument for that, for dehumanizing the majority of society when they're going into prison. But that is what the prison does. It dehumanizes folks on the way in. So you lose your identity, right? You lose respect, right? Many of us lose our dignity, and now they start dehumanizing you, right? So they start making you know and understand that you're less than human, okay? That you have no control. Okay, so after you are dehumanized, or some might say violated, you then realize that you're not getting back the stuff that they took from you. Your clothes, some people, the expensive clothes and shoes and all of that. You realize you're not getting that back. What they give you back to put on, a lot of the times, is used, torn, stained clothes, prison clothes, or let's say prison uniforms, for incarcerated persons to put on. And they make you understand without a doubt that this is what you are now. This is who you are. This is what represents you. This dirty, stained, torn clothes. Right? And you have to wear that. Do you know what goes through a person's mind who doesn't even like to borrow someone else that they know or love clothes to wear? They find that that's the nastiest thing in the world. Do you know what's happening to them now that you're asking them to put on something that they can clearly tell that someone else has worn for a long time, right, in this prison, right? So you take away their personal property, they're not getting it back, and you're giving them a lot of the times this nasty stuff, because that's how you see it, right, to put on, to wear, after you just dehumanize them. And they're going through interviews where you're asking them about their health, their mental, that type of stuff, right? This is the process of entering the prison, right? And then this prison staff, they hand you, half of a toothbrush a lot of times, what we call, what do you call that? The small toothpaste, you get this little thing of toothpaste, a little tube, a little block of bar for soap and that type of stuff. These little things, and stuff that you're not accustomed to, right? You're just not accustomed to it. And again, no matter who you are being treated as if you are one of the most horrible people in the world, right? And so you're in the system now, coming through that, and one of the things that they give you that prisoners don't understand is extremely important is a book. It's called the Prison Handbook. Now, there's a general one for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. You could find it on their website, online. But prisons have them adjusted minorly to the specific institutions and how that specific institution might operate. And so the prison gives you their specific handbook. It's an introduction for the prisoner to the prison system. And they give them that, and along with sometimes clean, sometimes dirty, torn blankets, maybe a pillowcase, maybe a clean towel, maybe not. This is the kind of stuff that you get. It can be used dirty. Let's say this. When I say dirty, when you're going in, I'm talking about dirty as in the fact it has stains and stuff on it, right? When I say used, I mean used to the point where, you can tell that someone else had that and it was used. And so they might have washed it before they presented it to who is going to use it next, to the person that's coming in. But to you, again, that's just the filthiest thing ever, right? I just get here, you give me clothes that somebody else wore. I don't care if you washed it in the machine. I don't want that, right? That's how people going into prison think. That's how most people going into prison think, right? And so that's what you go through, right? And then you're walked with this stuff up to a unit depending on what type of system you're in, whether it's a low, medium, or high. You're going through big metal bars and heavy security doors. You're realizing you're behind barbed wire and tall walls and stuff like that the majority of the time. And you start seeing people who are incarcerated of all walks of life, a whole lot of them with mental problems or issues, a whole lot of them just pissed off and angry and hate where they are, acting out and acting crazy and, going through it. And you're coming in seeing that and you're starting to break down, right? Because this is just overwhelming, right? And then they take you a lot of the times and they place you in concrete cells with iron bars until they can identify exactly which room you're going to go into. And maybe if they do know which room you're going into and you're actually going into a cell and not a cubicle that has doors and stuff, a lot of times you get in there, someone was in there or is not there anymore, and that person and the cell is dirty, right? So you see the place as filthy, or there might be someone in there and you don't know who the hell that is, right? Because you are entering federal prison, you don't know who you're running into or what. And the majority of the time, the person coming in for the first time is terrified of the person they're going to stay with or going to be housed with, because they don't know who they are. All you have in your mental is, I'm going into this place where supposedly they put the worst of the worst, and I have to go be amongst them. And that person is terrified, right? And so that's where you have to be. And of course, the staff that gets you from the court to the prison, they ain't really that bad, right? You might lose a little bit of respect with them, but they ain't really that bad. When you get into that prison, the prison staff, their mental, it's taken up higher. It's like, oh boy, now you're here. Their mental is, you here now, we got you, you're going to do things the way we say it, this is how it's going to be, and if you don't do that, we're going to punish you, right? And you get the sense, the majority of folks in prison get the sense that they are there to be punished, even though that's not true. You're supposed to be there as punishment. Let me break that down for you a little bit. You are placed in prison let me say it this way, being placed in prison is like being placed on timeout, right? You are to be removed from society, right? They deem you a threat to society. everybody, I don't know why everybody's a threat to society when they commit a crime, but everybody becomes a threat to society. Everybody shouldn't be a threat to society when they commit a crime, but okay, whatever, right? And you get placed in there, and your sentence or your being placed there is supposed to be like being placed on timeout. And they are supposed to take care of you and make sure that you are healthy and that you are in sound mind, sound body, do these things, right? That's actually how it is in the law, in the physical laws, right? They take care of you. It's supposed to treat you humane. But that is not what happens. When you get in there, you start seeing that you are being punished, right? So, again, you're supposed to be placed in prison as punishment. Unfortunately, you are placed in prison as punishment and punished on top of that. Because your life and your experiences and the things that you're going to experience that are extremely horrible in most cases inside the prison system is additional punishment to what the law actually requires. All right? And so let me bring this all around and wrap this all up for you, right? Because all of that stuff I gave you there, I gave you it for a purpose. I gave you all that understanding so that you could see why it is folks struggle when they enter prison, and no matter who you are, you have issues with remedies. So let me wrap this up for you, okay? Let me wrap it up in a nice little package. So you're dealing with the courts, right? Stuff is all over the place, depending on who you are and what you did, whether you're innocent and you realize that you're going to end up in prison, for a long time, and you're not supposed to be there, or whether you actually committed your crime and you're trying to beat them, right? Whatever your challenges with the court system, right? Whether you're cutting a deal, right? And some folks, when they're cutting deals or they're providing information on their case about others or getting others involved, you're then considered, a rat. And now that's another thing you got to worry about. And so you got all that stuff dealing with your case, right? That's going through your head that you're stressing with. Then, on top of that, you have the fear of the unknown or what you perceive prison is probably going to be like, and you're afraid of that. And so you got that burden along with your court issues on your head at the same time. That's two things, right? Then, on top of that, right, your identity is being taken away, right? Your respect is gone. You're being dehumanized while going into the prison system. Okay? Right? That's 5 things, right? Your livelihood on the outside, whether it's your money, your kids, your wife, whatever it is you got going on the outside, you don't have control over it anymore, right? It's all up in the wind. It's, you don't control it, right? You got all these things running through a person's head now while they're entering the prison system. And all these things that they're dealing with, the dehumanization and all of that, how is anyone supposed to function properly, right? Or, get things done? I'm not going to lie to you. There's some of us that get it done, right? But the majority of people going into prison while they're entering prison is so stressed or so burdened that they are not functioning properly. You can't ask them to remember nothing. You can't tell them, they're stressing. Some of them are bugging out, spaced out. Why this is happening to me. All these different kind of things are going through their head. some of them spiritually or religiously are wondering, why were they forsaken? God, why didn't you help me? It's all types of things people are struggling with while going into the system. And one of the most important things for that person, which is the prison handbook, is handed to them at that moment when they are going into that prison system. And do you know what happens to that book 99% of the time? If there's 200,000 people in prison entering, right, in the United States, in the federal system, I'm telling you that 200,900 of them throw the book away. The book ends up in the trash because they're frustrated. Like, what am I going through here? What you give me this? What? I don't want this. In the trash. That's where it goes, right? Or one or two of them might stick it up under their bed. You know, well, let's not call it a bed, right? I think that's the wrong term. You can't call what you sleep on in prison a bed, right? The piece of sponge on the iron and stuff, no, right? But they might stick it up under the sponge, or, you know, put it somewhere. It gets thrown in the trash eventually. The majority of folks who enter prison are so stressed with the whole vision that I just painted for you that they are not going to read that book and or can't read that book anytime soon. I personally, one of the few that I've seen, kept it for some reason, and I might have read it maybe 2 to 3 months after I was in prison, right? But folks who enter prison, the place they get information from when they enter is from literally the voices of staff and those who are incarcerated. They go ask questions. Even though they're given a book that would answer the majority of their questions and tell them what life is supposed to be like within where they're at, they don't pay any attention to that. It's thrown in the trash. It's a waste of time and money. And, you know, to just walk around asking folks who didn't read the book, majority of them anyway, so they are giving them somewhat good information, not necessarily accurate, right, as it's supposed to be within the system, right? And so the administrative remedy process is mentioned in the handbook. It tells you about it in there, that if you have any issue within the prison, this is how you bring it to our attention, the administrative remedy process. Does the majority of folks know that when they enter prison? No, because of their mindset and the stress and what they do, they are not reading the handbook. They threw it away. So they have no idea about that. And the folks who are in there already are so terrified, so accustomed, if they do know about the administrative remedy process, because you can still find this information on the prison computers within the federal prison. But, you know, who's going to take time and go learn the computer system? Nobody's doing that either, right? And again, when entering the prison system, it's going to take a while for folks to understand what's going on because they got so much stress and so much worry on what they just went through and what's happening to family and other things on the outside that they are not focusing and or can't function properly to take care of themselves or to teach themselves things that they need to know for survival within the prison. And so it's the folks who are already on the inside who walk most of them through. But again, no one is walking you through solidly on proper rules and procedures the way that you should know it and understand it, because the majority of folks didn't read the book in the first place. They're just telling you what they feel like. Right? And so a lot of times folks are operating and doing things in a wrong manner or not in the actual way that it's supposed to be done. And so because of that, the amount because of all of this, the amount of remedies that can be produced or that should be put forth by folks who are incarcerated with real issues. The person coming in who is supposed to get a certain amount of medication or a certain type of medication just found out that they're not getting that anymore. They're getting something different. And their doctor tried that different thing with them on the outside, and it's no good for them. It's not working. And they're telling the prison staff that, and the prison staff saying, oh, no, well, we can't, there's nothing we could do for you. We can't give you that. We have to give you this, right? And that person accepts that and moves on. And they're taking this wrong medication now, and it's stressing them out. They're not functioning properly and all that type of stuff. And they figure, well, there's nothing I could do about it, right? In a lot of cases, a lot of times that is the case because the one that they might need is actually banned from the prison system. And then there are times when it's not. The staff just decided, well, I'm not going to give you this expensive medication. I'm going to give you the generic one, right? And the person accepts that and goes off. And just no remedies. Right? And those who are in there for a while and understand that or might know of the remedy system and or process, it's not helping anyone with it because, there's retaliation. There is, a lot of stress and burden that comes with it. Even if they file it properly, staff hinders it, right? And you got to constantly fight back and forth with staff to get things done. That is not happening. It doesn't work. It's always a problem and an issue with that. And so, when it comes down to it, what it boils down to is, folks who enter the prison system and or folks who are incarcerated, the majority of them do not know enough about the remedy process to use it or utilize it properly. The little of those who know how to use it, and it gets hindered, they get threatened, they get retaliated against, and so they start giving up on using the process and feel like it's a waste of time, and just it's too much pain on them to utilize that system, so they don't use it. All right? Or they would advise not to use it. Oh, just go talk to the officer, right? And they would have you talking to an officer for over a year before you actually get any real help, right? That's the type of a situation that folks go through while using this process. And so, it's just a horrible situation, unfortunately. And no matter what walk of life you come from when entering the prison system, if you are not prepared for it, like to say, if you're not a person who goes back and forth to prison, it's your first time, trust me, you're not functioning as you should, and there's just no way you're going to know about the remedy process while going in. Well, there is so you're supposed to know by the handbook, and there's also an orientation that you're supposed to know about. And at that orientation with staff will actually walk you through the process in the same minute way that it's mentioned in the handbook. So basically, staff is saying to you, well, yes, if you have an issue, there's a remedy system, a remedy process, and you're supposed to utilize it. You go ask your counselor for the forms. A lot of times they don't even show you what the form is. Just tell you, you ask your counselor for the form and you fill it out, you give it back to the counselor, and that's it, right? That's really it. There's no real training on the remedies. And so it doesn't get utilized. It doesn't get used, and it's just a horrible thing, a waste of taxpayers' time and money, and folks suffer tremendously because they don't know how to use the process. And so the hope here is by you spending this time listening to me, learning about what these folks go through, you get a sense of why it is that they need your help, why it is it's best for you. Why? Because you have not been through what they've been through. You can function, right? A lot of times they can't function. They're going through it. Imagine those who went through what I said on entering and then have issues and ailments that they are suffering and are not getting their help with it. They are constantly going through it. It's like a constant torture, mental torture. We're fighting to get help with prison staff, right? And so them producing proper, good, sufficient remedies is very hard, right? And they don't know. No one teaches them. The system does not teach you how to use it. The system merely provides it to you, or it mentions it to you, and provides you with the forms, if they feel like it, for you to use, right? And it's up to you to figure it out. And when they hinder it, you wouldn't have a clue what to do, all right? And so, that's for those who are on the inside. But you, through these training videos, now know and understand why it's important for you to assist folks who are incarcerated with this process, why it is important for you to go through all the trainings and educational videos that we will be producing for you to learn and understand the system, the people in the system, and everything that's involved, so that you, when you actually start learning how to do these remedies, can produce solid, effective remedies on behalf of folks who are incarcerated, right? And so from the bottom of my heart and all those who are incarcerated, I thank you for being interested in helping the folks who are incarcerated with this issue. I thank you for spending the time to go through this training with me, for listening, and I hope that we can make great change to the lives of folks who are suffering deeply within the system together, right? So please, thank you for looking at this video. There's going to be a couple questions for the Remedy Project student advocates to answer after this video, so that, that's a part of your remedy training. And thank you, folks. Thank you very much. That's it of the first part of the introduction. See you soon.